The observation deck of Celestial Station hummed with alien voices, a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and harmonics that no human throat could replicate. Ambassador Claire Okonkwo stood at the reinforced viewport, her dark eyes reflecting the swirl of the nebula beyond. Behind her, the galaxy's most powerful species gathered for what they called the Integration Summit. For humanity, it was Judgment Day. "They're staring again," Zara whispered, tugging at her school blazer. At 16, she looked exactly like what she was supposed to be, a diplomat's daughter dragged along to a boring adult event, clutching a datapad and trying not to yawn. Claire smiled without turning. Let them stare. Let them underestimate. The Celestial Council represented 47 species, each evolved under kind suns and gentle gravity. The Varath floated in their crystalline exoskeletons, fractal minds processing at speeds that made computers jealous. The Thulok towered on 4 legs, herbivores whose philosophy texts were legendary. Even the militant Kresh Dominion, with their scaled skin and predatory teeth, had evolved on a world where the most dangerous creature was a burrowing sandworm. None of them understood Earth. Ambassador Okonkwo. The voice slithered from behind, and Claire turned to face Commander Vaxed of the Kresh. His yellow eyes swept over her, then dismissed Zara entirely. "Your petition for council membership is amusing. A species that has barely left its own star system, seeking to stand among civilizations millennia old." Claire's smile never wavered. "We're fast learners, Commander." "Indeed." Vrake's jaw split in what might have been a grin. "We shall see how fast you learn the realities of galactic power." He moved away, leaving a trail of ozone. Zara glanced up at her mother, but Claire's expression revealed nothing. They'd been warned about the Kresh, about their tendency to test new species through demonstration rather than debate. The human delegation had prepared for politics, for procedural obstacles, for cultural misunderstandings. They had prepared for war. The reception hall stretched 300 meters, a marvel of architectural fusion where gravity shifted subtly between zones to accommodate different physiologies. Zara wandered to the refreshment table, scanning the offerings with apparent teenage disinterest. Her eyes, however, tracked every exit, every guard position, every structural weakness in the transparent aluminum walls. "You must be so bored, child." A Varath named Shimmer drifted closer, its crystalline face refracting rainbow patterns. "Such tedious adult matters." Zara smiled, perfectly innocent. "It's okay. Mom says I'm learning about diplomacy." "How?" Quaint. Shimmer floated away, already forgetting the human adolescent. That was when the lights went red. Emergency klaxons shrieked as blast doors slammed down across every exit. The elegant gathering dissolved into chaos as delegates scrambled for cover. Zara dropped her datapad and looked for her mother, but Kresh soldiers were already pouring through service corridors, weapons raised. They moved with military precision, herding the delegates into the center of the hall. "Nobody moves!" Vraxed emerged from the crowd, now wearing combat armor. "This station is now under Kresh control. The Integration Summit is over." Claire pushed through to the front, hands raised but voice steady. "This is an act of war, Vraxed. The Council will never accept. The Council is finished." Vrax's weapon hummed to life. "For too long, herbivores and philosophers have dictated galactic policy. Today, the Kresh Dominion demonstrates what true power looks like, and we begin by eliminating those who would dilute our strength." His eyes found Claire, starting with humanity's pathetic attempt to join civilized space. Soldiers grabbed Claire, forcing her to her knees. Other delegates were similarly restrained, their protests cut short by weapons pressed to vital organs. The Varath collectively keened in distress. The Thulok went silent, ancient instincts recognizing predators. "We will broadcast your executions across the galaxy," Vraxed continued. "A lesson in the cost of weakness. But first," he scanned the room. "Where is the child? The little human girl?" Guards searched, but Zara had vanished in the initial chaos. Vraxed hissed in annoyance. "Find her. Lock her in one of the side chambers. I want the mother to hear her daughter's screams before she dies." 2 soldiers found Zara hiding behind an overturned table, exactly where a terrified teenager would cower. They grabbed her arms, and she didn't resist, letting them drag her sobbing to an adjacent conference room. The door sealed behind her with a magnetic lock. The guards returned to Vraxt. The child is secured, Commander. Excellent. Begin preparations for the broadcast. I want every world watching when. The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in after 3 seconds, bathing everything in red. But in those 3 seconds of darkness, something changed. The guards felt it first, a primal unease that their evolutionary history had long forgotten. One of them glanced at the door where they'd left the human child. Commander, should we post someone outside the girl's room? Vrax laughed. She's a baby. What could she possibly do? In the conference room, Zara stood perfectly still, letting her eyes adjust. The crying had stopped the moment the door sealed. She rolled her shoulders, feeling the familiar looseness of muscles trained since she was 6 years old. Her fingers found the edge of her blazer, and she peeled back the lining to reveal what looked like decorative buttons. They weren't. She pressed 3 in sequence. The buttons liquefied, reforming into a monofilament blade no thicker than a hair, but sharp enough to slice through bone. Another button became a device she pressed against the door's control panel. It pulsed once, learning the magnetic signature, then emitted a counter-frequency. The door opened silently. The corridor outside was empty, lit by emergency strips. Zara moved like water, her footsteps absorbed by special soles that adapted to any surface. She'd studied the station's layout for 3 weeks, memorizing every duct, every service passage, every security blind spot. Her mother had taught her that preparation was the only advantage humans would ever have against species with superior technology. But preparation was enough. The first guard died without knowing she was there. Zara's blade found the gap between his helmet and armor, severing the spinal cord with anatomical precision. She caught his body before it fell, lowering it gently into a maintenance alcove. His weapon went with her. The second guard turned at the faint sound, but Zara was already inside his guard. She drove her knee into his thorax with enough force to crack the chitin, then used the monofilament blade to open his throat. The Kresh gurgled once and went still. 2 down, 43 to go. She accessed the station's environmental controls through a wall panel, using codes her mother had acquired through channels that officially didn't exist. The security feeds showed her everything. Vraxt preparing his broadcast, delegates on their knees, guards stationed at every strategic point, and her mother, watching a monitor that showed an empty conference room, the faintest smile on her face. Zara began to move. The Kresh operated with standard military doctrine, which meant they followed patterns. Patterns could be exploited. She disabled the gravity in Section 7, watching 3 guards float helplessly before venting the atmosphere for exactly 12 seconds. Humans could survive that. Kresh could not. In Section 9, she rerouted coolant through the floor panels, supercooling the metal until the guards' feet froze to the deck. They were still trying to break free when she arrived and ended them. The station's architecture became her weapon. She used ventilation shafts to move unseen, crawl spaces to set up ambush points, and her knowledge of alien physiology to strike at vulnerabilities that the Kresh had forgotten they possessed. Every kill was silent, efficient, and absolutely without hesitation. By the time Vraxday realized something was wrong, 8 of his soldiers had vanished. Report. All units, check in. The responses came back broken and confused. Guards were missing. Security feeds showed nothing but empty corridors and the occasional pool of blue Kresh blood. Vrax's eyes widened as the truth crystallized. Lockdown. The human girl is loose. All units converge on O. The broadcast equipment exploded. Zara had spent 3 minutes rewiring its power supply to overload, and the detonation took out 5 more guards along with Vrax's grand propaganda plan. Smoke filled the reception hall, and in the chaos, Zara dropped from a ceiling vent directly onto a soldier's back. She rode him down, blade finding the brainstem, then rolled behind a cover as plasma bolts scorched the air where she'd been. The hostages scattered, and Zara used the confusion to free her mother, pressing a weapon into Claire's hands. "Took you long enough," Claire said, her voice steady even as she fired at advancing Kresh. "Had to make an entrance," Zara replied, already moving to the next position. They fought back to back, mother and daughter, while the alien delegates watched in horror and awe. The Verith Collective processed what they were seeing at computational speeds and still couldn't believe it. The Thulok whispered prayers to gods that had never witnessed such violence. The humans were dancing with death, and death was losing. Vraxt rallied his remaining forces, falling back to a defensible position. His elite guard formed a perimeter. These soldiers, trained and augmented, the best the Kresh could produce. They faced the approaching humans with weapons raised and confidence built on 1,000 conquered worlds. Zara walked into their line of fire. Plasma bolts screamed past her head as she moved, each step calculated, each movement minimizing her profile. She'd trained in dodging since before she could read, learning to predict trajectory and timing through methods that would have horrified the Council's ethics committee. A bolt grazed her shoulder, burning through fabric and skin, but she didn't slow. The elite guards realized too late that she wasn't dodging randomly. She was closing distance. Zara reached the first guard and demonstrated what close-quarters combat meant to a species evolved from persistence hunters. Her fists broke chitin. Her elbows crushed organs. She moved through their formation like a virus through unprotected cells. Too fast to target, too savage to stop. One guard managed to grab her, his strength augmented to lift 5 times his weight. Zara smiled, and then she showed him what human grip strength could do. Her fingers found pressure points that the Kresh didn't know they had, and his scream was cut short when she redirected his own weapon into his skull. The last elite guard backed away, his weapon trembling. "What are you?" Zara stepped forward, blood on her face, her school blazer torn and smoking. "You wanted to know about humanity? Let me educate you." She gestured at the station around them. "Your people evolved on a world with one predator, one challenge, one environmental pressure. We evolved on a planet actively trying to kill us. Hurricanes that flatten cities, earthquakes that swallow mountains, diseases that learn to beat our immune systems, and predators." She smiled, and it was the most terrifying thing the guard had ever seen. So many predators. We hunted them all. We outlasted them, outthought them, and when that wasn't enough, we became better predators. Do you know what persistence hunting is? We chase prey until it dies from exhaustion. We don't stop. We don't tire. We just keep coming until everything else is dead. The guard fired wildly. Zara sidestepped and drove her blade through his eye socket. Vrax stood alone now, his grand coup reduced to corpses and failure. Claire approached him, weapon steady, while Zara secured the perimeter. The delegates were freed, huddling together and staring at the humans with new understanding. "You planned this," Vrax hissed. "The girl, the training, all of it." Claire's expression was ice. "Did you think we'd come unprepared? We knew species like yours would test us. So yes, I brought my daughter. My beautiful, brilliant daughter who has trained every day since she was 6 years old to survive the unsurvivable." She glanced at Zara, pride unmistakable. "We call it insurance. She's a child. She's human." Claire's voice carried across the hall, addressing not just Vraxt, but every delegate, every species represented. "And that means she's been preparing for death since birth. Every human child learns to swim because drowning is a statistical probability. We teach them to recognize poisonous plants, dangerous animals, and structural weaknesses in burning buildings. By the time they're 16, they've been vaccinated against diseases that would extinct most of your species." She stepped closer to Vraxt. "Zara is what we consider an average student. She's not special forces. She's not military elite. She's a schoolgirl who paid attention in class." Claire's smile could have frozen stars. "Imagine what our actual soldiers can do." Vraxt lunged, a desperate final attack. But Zara was there first. She'd moved faster than anyone could track, and her blade found his heart with surgical precision. The Kresh commander fell, disbelief frozen on his face. Silence filled the hall, broken only by the hum of damaged systems and the ragged breathing of traumatized delegates. Shimmer the Vareth drifted forward, its crystalline structure pulsing with computation. We did not understand Earth's classification as a Class 12 Deathworld. We thought it was merely dangerous flora and fauna. We did not comprehend that the dominant species would be shaped by such an environment into... It couldn't finish. Claire holstered her weapon and straightened her jacket. "Into survivors. Into predators. Into exactly what you saw today." She looked at each delegate in turn. Humanity petitioned for council membership not because we need your protection, but because we believe in cooperation over conquest. But make no mistake, we are not prey, we are not weak, and we will never be victims. The Thulok elder stepped forward, his forelegs trembling. The vote for human integration. I change my stance. Humanity has earned a seat through trial by fire. One by one, the other delegates nodded. Even those who had opposed humanity's inclusion. They had seen what one untrained human child could do. They did not want to imagine what an army of them could accomplish. Zara wiped the blade clean and reformed it into innocent buttons on her blazer. Her hands shook slightly now that the adrenaline was fading, and there were tears in her eyes that hadn't been there during the fight. Claire pulled her close, whispering something only a mother and daughter would share. To the delegates, Zara looked young again, vulnerable, just a girl who had witnessed terrible things. But they would never forget what she truly was beneath that mask. The council vote was unanimous. 3 days later, Claire and Zara stood in the departure lounge preparing to return to Earth. Word had already spread across the galaxy about the Integration Summit, about the Kresh coup, and about the human teenager who had single-handedly dismantled an elite military force. Shimmer approached, its form subdued. Ambassador, I must ask, when you brought your daughter, did you truly anticipate violence? Claire considered the question. We hoped for peace. We prepared for war. That's what humans do. And the child? What will become of her after all this? Zara looked up from her datapad, where she was reading about ancient Earth history. I go back to school. I have exams next month. Shimmer processed this, trying to reconcile the image of the blood-soaked predator with the student worried about mathematics tests. How does your species manage such duality? Practice, Zara said simply. Lots and lots of practice. As they boarded the shuttle, Claire paused at the airlock and turned back to the gathered delegates who had come to see them off. One more thing you should know about humans. Zara isn't unique. Every parent on Earth teaches their children to survive. We have to because our world demands it. So when you interact with humanity in the future, remember this. The accountant sitting across from you at negotiations might have black belts in 3 martial arts. The engineer fixing your ship might be a championship marksman. The teacher instructing your children might know 17 ways to kill with office supplies. She smiled, and it was warm and friendly and absolutely terrifying. We're all predators wearing civilization like clothing. Don't make us take it off. The shuttle departed, leaving behind a galaxy that would never look at humanity the same way again. The council had accepted them, but it was acceptance born of fear and respect in equal measure. On Earth, the news of their admission was celebrated. Parodies filled the streets, and politicians gave speeches about humanity's bright future among the stars. In classrooms around the world, teachers continued lessons on survival, self-defense, and the 100 ways to turn any environment into a weapon. Because that was what Deathworlders did. They survived. They adapted. They thrived in conditions that would kill anything else. And now the galaxy knew it too. Zara returned to her normal life, attending classes and studying for exams just like she'd said. But sometimes, late at night, she would train in the basement gym, keeping her skills sharp. Not because she expected to need them again, but because she was human, and humans were always prepared for the worst. Her mother watched from the doorway, proud and sad and determined. Claire had carried the weight of representing her entire species, and she had succeeded by showing the galaxy humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to be victims. The Celestial Council would remember the Integration Summit for millennia. They would tell stories about the human schoolgirl who had hunted trained soldiers through a space station, who had turned their own technology against them, who had moved like death itself through corridors lit by emergency lights. And they would wonder, in their meetings and discussions about the strange species from the Deathworld called Earth, what other surprises humanity was hiding behind those innocent smiles. The answer, of course, was everything. Humanity had learned long ago that the most dangerous weapon was the one your enemy didn't see coming. They had survived ice ages and plagues, predators and disasters, wars and famines. They had clawed their way to the top of the food chain on a planet that specialized in extinction events. And now they had joined the galactic community, bringing with them all the tricks and tactics and terrible advantages that came from being born on a world that never stopped trying to kill them. The other species would learn, in time, what it meant to negotiate with predators. They would discover that humans valued peace not from weakness, but from choice, and that choice could be revoked. But for now, there was celebration. There was integration. There was the beginning of a new era where humanity took its place among the stars. And somewhere in that vast galaxy, in meeting halls and military academies and philosophy schools, aliens were teaching a new lesson to their young. Never underestimate the humans, especially the young ones. Especially the ones who smile and call themselves civilians. Because on Earth, there were no civilians, just predators who had agreed to behave. Until they didn't.